the northern lights.
Northern lights.
Baby, you just kick your feet up while I kick back. I roll one with you by my side.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Bold, Black, and Addicted to Bravo, because I am bold, Black, and addicted to Bravo. My name is Nyemade, or that African butterfly, on social media. And I'm so excited to have my guest with me today, Kristen. Kristen, I'm going to let you introduce yourself and tell everybody a little bit about you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kristen. A lot of you know me as Philly Diva on Instagram. I have unfortunately become famous from getting into it with Diana Jenkins from Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. I am bold in my commentary. I enjoy Bravo. I like actually a lot of kinds of reality TV. I enjoy documentaries, my favorite crime documentaries. And I just kind of have an opinion on life, being that I'm, in 40s. So, I just kind of like to enjoy other people's conversations, see what they have to say, lend my opinion and kind of my life experiences.
Yeah, I love it. If I'm coming in hot as a person, that would be you. Like you came in blazing with Diana, but we loved it. She came for the wrong person, and we were all like, "No, we're not going to have that. We are not going to have that."
I appreciate it.
Yes. So before we get started and talk about today's topic, I like to warm things up with a little game. I'm going to play some Black Card Revoked, since it is Bold, Black, and Addicted to Bravo. See if you get to keep your black card before we start.
Okay.
So the first one, they are homegirls living in a 90s world. Is it Whitley, Jaleesa, Kim, and Freddie, Shireen or Sydney, Khadijah, Sinclair, Maxine, and why can't I talk today? Regine. That's not how you say it.
That is how you say it, because that's who it is.
Okay. And T-Boz, Left Eye, or Chili?
Now it is we're gonna say B. It's Khadijah, Regine, Maxine, and Regine. Yeah. For them. We're living
Sydney, Sinclair's.
Yes.
All right. What does it mean when your hotline blings? Your telephone is ringing, you're making money, someone needs late night love, or Drake is on the radio?
Drake is on the radio.
Drake is on the radio, but what does it mean when the hotline blings?
Yeah, I'm down for some late night loving.
Late night loving. Yep.
I love it. Yeah, I'm down for some I had to think about the choice. Like, wait a minute, what are my choices again?
You're right, because it's a Drake song. Yep. All right. This is a opinion one, but if you haven't watched this movie, you need to get your black card revoked. Boys in the Hood, The Wiz, The Color Purple, or Roots?
I've seen them all.
Mm-hmm. Which one could someone say they haven't seen that you'd be like black card revoked?
Okay, so here's the thing. Here's the problem. I'm of a particular age. Mm-hmm. So if I say you haven't seen The Wiz, you get your black card revoked. However, somebody maybe in their earlier days might say Boys in the Hood. So either of those, yeah, you should probably go back.
I would say so. I would go with either of those. I'd probably say Boys in the Hood, but only because I haven't seen The Wiz. Which is insane because I'm obsessed with musicals.
Because there have been so many now. Like
it had. Well, I know, wasn't it with Michael Jackson and like Diana Ross?
That was the original.
Yeah.
You should see that one. And then a couple of years ago, NBC Live, they did a remake.
Yeah, I heard that. I don't know why I haven't seen it. I love musicals. I'm obsessed with musicals. It's weird that I haven't seen it.
It is weird that you haven't seen it. I'm just going to say this, and I hope it inspires you to see it. Quincy Jones did the soundtrack, and the last celebration scene is so joyous, and you will feel it in your spirit.
Okay, I'll see it. I think the thing that was putting me off from seeing it is like The Wizard of Oz is so damn long. Like I've seen the actual Wizard of Oz and I was like, oh, another one. But I liked Wicked, so I can sit through The Wiz. Sure
you can sit through The Wiz. I don't want you to compare the two. And we're going to get back to Bravo. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
I could talk about cinema all day. Okay. The reason the Wizard of Oz is so long cinematically, that was how they told stories in that day of that time, and that editing really wasn't there. You had your 2.5, 3, 4 hour movies. The Wiz is your standard 90 minutes, maybe a bit more, but it flies by because it's not that every scene is a song, but every scene is a production.
Okay.
Like every scene is a production. Because again, I initially saw this as a little girl, so again, it's big to me, but it's still my favorite and it's still nostalgic. So the scene of all of these people who look like us in these joyous moments, in these trial moments, in this adventure, it's something different.
See, that's the most, like, now I want to go see it right now. Good job. Good job. If I ever need anything plugged, I know who to find. Because now I'm ready to go watch it. But okay, so back to Bravo though. Our topic today is it takes a village, because we've all heard that expression before. It takes a village to raise a family, to have kids, all of that. But very rarely do we actually see it. You know, sometimes we'll see the mom pops in, maybe stays and helps with the pregnancy, things like that. But I've noticed with some Bravo shows, we've seen the women actually take on the children of their siblings, their nephews. But it's interesting to me because I've seen it specifically happen with Black cast members, but not necessarily white cast members. So I just wanted to sort of talk about that and see like what your thoughts were on the ones that have taken it in, how that's going. And also why we think that there's I don't know if there's disparity, but there's such a difference in the thought process, because it's not like we don't know that some of the white cast members have family members who have had problems. They've been open about that. Like Ramona, I think she said one of her siblings had an addiction issue. I know Whitney with her dad. I don't know if any of her siblings have Whitney from Salt Lake City. So let's start there. Like, why do you think that we see it happening more often in Black families where they're taking on the responsibility of their siblings' children?
I think this goes back to, our enslaved days where we would lose so many of our family members. We would raise, the survivors, so to speak. So I think this is just something that has been passed down from generation, that we don't leave our family behind when there is a trauma. We will raise you as our own. We will do this for you as our own. And I'm speaking also from experience. Like, I had my house maybe a year before I took in my nephew while he was transitioning into being adult because my sister was done, So I have had to play that Monty role where, thank God he didn't have him as a little child, but I had that's not really what you want to do. This isn't the choice you want to make. These aren't the people, like, you can't bring them here. That kind of, disciplinary. And it's so much love in that. And not just, love for my nephew, but, love for my family. Because what do you want to do? I don't understand leaving somebody behind.
Yeah.
Or leaving somebody to struggle when you can help them, when you can bring them up. So I think that's, again, part of our, our kind of history in this country of keeping each other close when we can.
Well, I think it's a mix of that history and also just from the culture even before that, because like I was born in Liberia, so my family comes like straight off the boat. And in the villages, they literally were villages. Like, it literally was the village raising your child. And and actually my grandma was part of a polygamous marriage, which I didn't even know until like a couple years ago, but she was like the first of sister wives, which is very fascinating to me and interesting. But they really did have that village mentality, and I think that we've never really lost that. And I think that really, when you look at it, America is one of the few cultures that doesn't do that, right? Like, if we look in Africa, like, yes, and they have the villages and the tribes. If you look at Asia, like China, Japan, Korea, like, they'll gladly take in their family members. Their kids stay living with them. Like, they don't kick out their kids at 18. Their kids live with them till they get married again. Even in Indian cultures, they have their whole family will be in large houses. So it's really, I think, more of an American thing that we're like, oop, you're out at 18. And also, those are your kids. You worry about them yourself.
Yeah. I couldn't imagine raising my daughter by myself. Like when I decided to purchase my house, I was like, oh my God, I'm only a mile from my mom. And then once I got pregnant, I'm like, oh my, thank God, I'm only a mile from my mom. So those two dynamics completely changed the way I thought about things.
Yeah, I would imagine, like, if I don't have kids, nor do I want them, but if I did, I would want to be closer to my family. Right now, though, I love the auntie life. I pop in, I say hi, I'm cute, I leave. It's wonderful. But I do think about that. Like when I watch these shows, I'm like, what if that, like, God forbid anything happened to like my sibling and I had to take them on? Obviously I would. Like, it wouldn't even be a thought in my mind I would take them on. But it's very interesting to me to see, especially some of these more seasoned cast members, because a lot of us that are older, I'm in my mid-30s, some people are that way, like, you know, childless and older, not by choice, but many of us are, it's by choice, like we don't want kids. So it's interesting to me to see these women now have to take on these children when knowing that they themselves never wanted kids. That's why they're older and don't have them. But you know, you do it for the love of the child and the love of your siblings. But it's interesting seeing them navigate it, and how some, I think, do, from what we can see, a great job with it, like a Kandi from Atlanta or a Quad from Married with Medicine. And then also seeing some people struggle with it, like Marlow from Atlanta. What are your thoughts on the difference in how we see them taking on those kids?
Okay, here's an unpopular opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I understand why Marlow did what she did.
Mm-hmm.
I do not agree with it. I had my daughter at 35. So for 16-ish years, I was out here batting and bopping, living
life. Yes.
Living life.
Yeah.
Traveling and having fun. I decided to go to LA just for 3 months. I'm out. See ya.
Mm-hmm.
And I had her at 35, and there are those moments. I can't even say there are those moments where I'm looking at myself, because I am raising myself.
Mm-hmm.
And she'll say something, and I've already corrected her 3 times. And I'll call my mom, can you get her? My mom is 70 something. So she's, no, I can't.
Yeah.
And I have to sit here and deal. And there are times where I want to say, get out. And I don't have somebody where I can just, kind of ship her off to for 30 days
Mm-hmm.
and continue to enjoy living my life, because that would be great.
Yeah. But don't you think that if you and sorry if I'm jumping ahead of what you're going to say, but don't you think if you take on the responsibility, I understand that feeling, but you can't, and you probably wouldn't, but once you take on the responsibility that I'm going to care for you, I think then you signed up for it. You signed up for it.
Not only did you sign up for it, but you made a promise to those boys that you were going to be a stable and loving provider. Right? My daughter didn't ask to be here, and everything in her, around her, is not stable. But for what I can control, Mommy's gonna make it right.
Yes.
And everything you need to see is Mommy gliding above this water. You don't need to see Mommy's feet treading.
Exactly.
I got it. And anytime there is some kind of struggle, or she has to deal with some type of anxiety, my immediate reaction is, baby, do you see Mommy sweating? Do you see Mommy losing control? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pray about it. I'm going to figure it out, and we're going to make it happen. Learn this lesson and keep it moving. And I think that's also one, therapy. It works.
Definitely that group needs therapy.
That entire house needs therapy. So oftentimes I have to speak to my daughter in a tone where it's not to an 8-year-old, but it's to a human who needs to understand that a human is going through something. We will process it, we will work through it, and we will get it together.
Yep.
And there's no age in that.
Because they're little adults. And I think that's also, though, one of the perks of being older, not having kids, or maybe even being older and having kids is like, I do see them as like their own little people. I think sometimes parents, especially like younger parents, they're like very much see them as like my mini me, but in a way that where it's like, I'm going to tell them what life path to be on, and I'm going to tell them how to behave and how to think. And when the kids act outside of that, they don't know what to do. And it's like, well, they're literally their own person. Like, thank you for their DNA, and like they'll have some of your mannerisms, but for the most part, they're their own people. And like you said, and so in this case, for those who may not know, Marlow recently took on her two brothers or her two nephews. But then she got really overwhelmed with them and having trouble disciplining them. And so she kicked them out to her other sister for 30 days. Her sister, who already has a bunch of kids, by the way. And it really upset me. It upset me for a few reasons. I mean, like you said, I can understand her wanting to, like, duh, of course. But the fact that she could directly relate the facts, I think they were supposed to meet up with their mom or something, and their mom canceled, or their mom.
It seems like their mom was going through some type of mental health challenge.
Yes.
Moment.
Yes.
Like, and it wasn't that she was in the season of that. Like, she's in the season, yes, but at that moment. When the call,
yeah,
was having a type of episode.
Yes.
So that in itself is traumatic.
Right. So it was like something traumatic happened. And from that moment, they started wilding out more than they had been before. And that's trauma. That is a child dealing with trauma. So like, to me, the worst thing you can do is kick them out, because now they're already dealing with, because it's not like, oh, they just came out of nowhere. Like, you know why they're behaving that way. And that's when you need to love them harder. That's when you need to get therapy for them. But to be like, I'm overwhelmed by you being bad, so now you're gone. It's like, you're just piling the trauma onto the trauma. You're just telling them that if they behave too badly, they're unable to be loved, and you're getting rid of them. And it doesn't matter that she says she's going to take them back again, but like, it almost does more damage to have that added layer of trauma on top of it.
And I guess that's where it breaks my heart, because she's constantly saying they need therapy, they need anger management. No, y'all
do. She definitely does.
Anger management, and y'all need to be on a very strict schedule, which is hard for that's the hardest part about being a parent. My daughter decides she wants to catch the bus to school. Okay, great, because it saves me in gas. But at the same time, that also means we now have to leave the house at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And if you're someone who, again, like if you're used to, because Marlo's older, clearly she doesn't have kids. And I can't say that she's never wanted kids, but, clearly she's lived a comfortable life of not having kids. So obviously now adding kids to that equation is going to mess things up. But I just feel like, don't accept it if you're not ready to take on the full responsibility of having children, because you will do more damage to them than good if you take them on and then you're like, oh, it's too much for me, I'm out. Hi, Lauren.
I think this is unfortunate.
Hi, so sorry for being late. Sorry.
Hi.
Hi.
Oh, your background is so pretty.
Thank you, Amazon.
I'm gonna let Kristen finish your thought, and then I'll welcome you in and let you introduce yourself.
Okay, I was just saying that, when you, you know what? Go ahead, because I lost my train of thought.
Okay, all right, we'll be back. Hi, Lauren. We are talking about It Takes a Village. So we are currently discussing, we were talking first about why we see it happening more in Black families than other families on Bravo, where they're taking in their nephews and taking in a family member to raise them. And just now we were discussing the Marlow situation with the boys and how we feel about the fact that she took them in and now is like, it's too much for me, so goodbye. So if you want to introduce yourself and then maybe give your opinions, we'd love to hear it.
Sure. Hey, my name is Lauren. I am certified, if I could be, Bravoholic. It's like broker by day, Bravo by night. And you can find me on Instagram, Lauren Issa Magic. I do a lot of TikToks, or it was actually TikTok I meant. So there's that. And I love joining these discussions with you. I feel like I always broaden my mind. and particularly on this topic, like for me personally in my family, right? We had four, like it was my mom, my brother, and I, and we had four cousins. Our cousins, I'm not going to go into all of her business, but we ended up having to we didn't want them to go into the system, right? We didn't want them to be separated, right? Because these things happen in so many communities, not just the Black community, but since we're highlighting it and it's my personal experience. So all four of them, like part of me, my brother and I would be like, oh, we're orphans now because we had them for 12 years, right? Mm-hmm. Like we raised them and there wasn't an option, or I guess there could have been an option to be like, it's just too much.
Right.
And be like, go on. But we
or say get the F out like Marlow did.
Right, get the F out, right? Like but that wasn't the choice that my mom made. I think sometimes she wished, on bad days that maybe she would have, but they're children and the things that children need are to feel loved, safe, and secure. I mean, and so that's what Marlow said she was going to provide. So I understand being like, teenagers, because they all became teens. Wow. And thankfully, there's been a reunification with their mom and seeing them grow and blossom, seeing that develop. But for a long time, it felt like, I just felt like with Marlow, were you doing this for a storyline? Because if it was for the love, you don't just say, get the F out of my house to young Black boys.
Especially, and we were pointing this out earlier, especially because she knows why they started wilding out. It's not like they have been that way the whole time. It was, they went through yet another traumatic experience with their mom, like seeing their mom or hearing from your mom in this bad spot, and it's triggered something to them, and they're quite obviously acting out because of it. Right. So it's like, how can you kick them out when you know that right now they're just sharing their pain and they're young? Like, to me, like that's even worse.
And more than that, I would think that Marlow, because of her, how she grew and how the things that she craved when she was younger, how she couldn't see that. She couldn't look outside of herself, really, I think.
Well, that's because I don't think Marlow's ever truly healed from that. So
yes, there it is.
If you've never healed from that, because, she's constantly going back to, well, I went through this and I went through that. Yes, you did. And nobody's ever negated that from you. But at the time, did you heal from that? Right. When did you try to fix that little girl? Because that little girl is still hurt.
Has Marlow ever said if she's gone to therapy?
No. Where's Dr. Jeff when you need him?
You need Dr. Someone. And I'm a huge advocate for therapy. I tell everyone. It's funny because people think of therapy as like, to fix you when you're broken. But I think you need it all the time, if not for any reason than to help you get more in touch with yourself, help you learn better coping mechanisms through life. Like when in life, besides if you're lucky enough to have a parent who teaches you how to deal with things and how to communicate, like when do you really get taught that stuff? You just sort of figure it out as you go. And that's where therapy comes in. It really helps you like understand yourself more, understand others more, the way you see the world more. I think it's crucial. Everyone should go. Just like everyone should go to the doctor.
Yeah. When I see Marlow, I feel like they say like pain and trauma that's not transformed is transmitted, right? Like it just moves, right? And with her, you could just see it moving in her, moving on to others. And I think that sometimes for me, I guess, because I'm in therapy, I root for it, I recommend it. But there is this thing where I just feel like when I'm watching on the screen, it's like little Marlow. And y'all are in therapy, so you know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
That's little Marlow. And you're like, oh, girl.
Yeah.
What did Kenya say her real name was? Lakeisha.
Why did I see a TikTok where someone was like, if you didn't think I typed in her full name like Kenya said, and it surely popped up. I was like, wow.
Yeah, so I mean, and that's what we're looking at. We're looking at little Lakeisha in all those fights. Same way with Heaven. She'll say, when you see me lash out, That's who you're seeing. You're seeing my hurt self, my child self. My earring is just breaking, and it's just it's unfortunately sad to see when there are other children. You know, when there are children involved or even other people involved. I don't need trauma bleeding on me, and I really don't.
But when is it that you're like, this is enough, girl? It's time for you to talk to somebody. Like,
someone needs to tell her. Someone needs to tell her.
I think Sheree needs to tell her. Because that is her good Judy that she has not had beef with.
Yeah.
Since Africa.
Recently, anyway.
And Drew.
Africa. And
Drew.
You know what? It might.
Listen, Drew needs someone to tell her to go to therapy herself.
Why was Drew a little silent sniper to my heart this season? I don't know what happened.
My issue with Drew is like I wanted to like her, but she makes it so hard. I think that I honestly
very hard.
I do. I think if I start to think of her like a Heavenly, where I don't think of her as like a real person, just a character in the show, I think that I'll be able to like her more. Because like I couldn't stand Heavenly. She was too much on Married to Medicine. But once I just took her for the joy of the messiness she brings to the plot in the show, then I began to enjoy her as a character on the show. And I think if I try to see Drew like that, I will. Because when I think of like a normal person, who doesn't have a dog but walks around with the dog bone just to throw it in the middle of a fight, I'm like, girl, you are too much. It's too much. But if I think of this character just trying to make an amusing moment for me on TV, I'm like, she's so messy. It's hilarious. So I think if I like step outside and just think of it like that, it'll be okay. Because when I think of her as just like a person, like she's ridiculous. Like her fights are ridiculous to me.
Wait, then can the caveat, and then we can go back. Can you say the same for Lisa Rinna?
I was just thinking
no. Well, see, Lisa Rinna's another one. That's what I'm talking about. Lisa Rinna, I
cannot separate them now.
In my mind, first of all, I've been taking a break this year because it's too much. But in the past, I have been able to stand Lisa because in my mind, Lisa treats the show like she's a character. She herself treats it like she has been cast as the villain and she comes in every season with her assignment and that's what she does. So I watch her as in just like the fun villain of the cast. So she hasn't really bugged me. So I think I just have to put Drew in that mindset as well. Then it's not as upsetting to me because I'm like, they're just playing their role. Because I do think that that's what Drew is doing also. I think Drew is playing her role and she knows being an antagonist is a great look. It worked for Kenya. Coming in and being an antagonist, it works.
I think the difference, though, between what Drew is doing and what Rinna is doing is Drew will read the girls about the show on Twitter and on the gram. Rinna will read everything about everyone, and it's not even really a read; it's more so an insult.
Yeah.
I can't even call it a read,
right?
Because
read.
It's no.
Scripted. It's scripted.
Yeah. No, Drew definitely does the reads better. I think I'm going to grow to like her. I think I just needed a separation period because when she came on, because I liked Drew as an actress, when she came on, I was happy she was on. I was like, Drew's coming, like I like her, like blah blah. And then I'm like, oh no.
I really
kept saying things.
Why was I always just like, ooh, she's the girl who stole her man? That's how I thought of her coming
a lot of people
from the
did.
game.
Yeah.
So when I had her first season, even with not Pastor Holy Whore, that was Monique. What did she say? Whatever she was saying.
With the pastor
her first season. Yeah. I was like,
dreadful.
Like, blah. But this season, old hobble leg in the boot has taken my little heart.
Even her conversation with Sonia?
No.
Speaking of it takes a village. No. What if your village husband wants you to have kids and you don't want more kids? Like that still falls into this category.
That falls in there. What I feel like is I guess I would say Drew is, in Carlos King's words, a force multiplier. She makes scenes happen. Right. She moves scenes along.
She does.
And I enjoy that. The Sonia conversation cringed a lot of. I mean, the Ralph situation cringe
a lot of. Well, the Sonya
of.
situation, I think, reminded us all of the pastor stuff from last year, and that because you almost forget that she has that mindset until she speaks it, and you're like, oh yeah, I forgot you're one of those. Which, listen, to each his own.
I don't want to
his own.
Another prophet from Drew. Not this season. I heard enough this season. Next season, if I hear another daggone word about a pastor, prophet, or assistant, I'm just over it from her. I like her. The messiness she delivers. I like the zingers and the one-liners and the and the clap. Like, she's funny and good for this show. Like, she's not quite as much a comedic relief as Portia was.
Right.
But she brings enough where it's not so much angst.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
She does.
I mean, she could
even just the way she
level
felt
of your ho daughter. It could happen. We don't know. We'll see how
she could get there. And I think just the way that she it's harder to take her old school mentality when you see it playing out in such a negative way in her real life, right? Like it's hard, like knowing that she is very much like the man is the king and like what he wants and blah blah blah. It'd be one thing if on the other side of that we saw a happy marriage. But on the other side of that, we see him disrespecting you, allegedly cheating on you and doing all those other things. It's like, girl, come on, open your eyes. Like, I want to shake her.
I just want to know
where. There it is. What happened in Tampa?
I want to.
You know what he gives? He gives energy.
Very.
Who?
I don't you say that because you say the devil will appear.
Yep. And
what does it rhyme with? What does it rhyme with?
It's the new guy that Sheree's been hanging out with.
Oh yes. Yep.
That's the energy.
I didn't watch the show, but
you don't even watch and you know.
I did. Fantastic.
Yes.
But right? And it's just like, speaking of the village, right? Is the village that Drew is living in, right? She has her mom there.
I'm sorry. For those of you who are listening to this and not watching this, we were mouthing a certain cheating gentleman from Love and Marriage Huntsville, whose name starts with an M. If you know, you know.
Yes.
For those who are listening, yes.
Sorry.
But yeah, Ralph gives that energy, and I still though crackle up when the time she was talking and she's like, all the girls say he gaslights me. I don't think he gaslights me. So then they have her look up gaslighting.
Production.
And she's like, oh wait, yeah, I guess he does gaslight me. It's like production,
right?
The Real Housewives of Atlanta, their production crew, between the way they interact with them and the editing, they're a whole nother character for me, and I love it.
Right? Like Kenya being like, I was on time, ma'am. Let's roll the tape.
No.
And I love you.
Her dating history, and then production rolls back her sequence of men.
Yeah,
gotcha.
They're shady. But speaking of Atlanta, so Kandi took in her nephew when he was younger, and Kandi, especially if you watch Kandi and the Gang, you realize how many of her family members she's taking care of, and I feel like we see that a lot with Black families as well. I was reading something recently because we were talking about like Black generational wealth and things like that, and they were talking about how very early on in the process, when someone who's Black begins to gain like affluence or money, like their family immediately expects them to turn it out and help them and take on their responsibilities and help out their family, and how we do that a lot in our families. And I think it's like it's a good thing and a bad thing, right? So before you came, Lauren, Kristen and I were talking about how America is really the only culture where you don't take care of your family kind of like your whole life in some way or form, because we see it in other cultures. But at the same time, I feel like, let's say I suddenly, knock on wood, blow up and I'm doing well. I finally finished my book and it's New York Times bestseller. Like, I could understand like family wanting to, not my immediate family, which is probably why we're so close, but like extended family being like, oh, she's got money now, help us. But like, as bad as it sounds, I wouldn't want to help right away, because while my heart would want to help right away, I also know that if I could take that money and invest it and put it into property or something and wait a couple years, I would have even more money to then help both of us, versus like taking a little bit and churning it right out. And I think that's why we have such a problem building that wealth, is we get a little bit and we immediately, and I do it now. I don't even know why I'm talking. Like I say I wouldn't, but I do it now. Like if I have a couple extra bucks and someone needs something, I'm like, here you go.
Yep.
You know, but it's a problem because it stops us from being able to really acquire the money that we need to then have our money make money, which is when you truly have wealth and when you're truly making money.
There was Master P did an interview on the Breakfast Club a few years ago, and you know, Charlamagne asked him a similar question. Would you know? Do you have family members that come out the woods? He said, "Yeah, but I teach them to fish." They're like, "What do you mean?" Same way it says in the Bible. I'm not going to give you a fish. I'll teach you how to fish. If you learn to fish, you got your own money. And then we're going to ride together and make money together. But I can't give you money. Because you're going to have the same problems when that money runs out. But if I teach, then you're good. And I think that's the mentality that, you know, it's harder for us to learn because we want to help you immediately because we see you struggling. You know what I mean? We know what that is like to struggle. So I don't want my family to struggle. So let me help you now. But if you know it took me a minute to get on, well, this is what I'm going to have to teach you, and it's going to take you a minute too.
And that's the other thing too, is like, you don't want to be resentful of the fact that like, listen, it's taken me years and years and years of struggle. And like, now that I have money, you want me to just hand it over to you to make it easy for you? Like, don't get me wrong. I sit here wishing someone would just hand me money. I have lots of great ideas. I just need the money and time to make them happen. I wish it would fall on my lap, but it's not working that way. And not that you want to be like, it didn't happen for me, so it's not happening for you. But at the same time, you also know that you appreciate it because you worked so hard for it.
Exactly.
I always just think like, when those things happen, you just have to think like, what is it worth to you personally? And is it like at what cost, right? Because like I can help you in the interim, but long term, like you need to know how to help yourself. So let's like work on this together, right? Like, you know?
Yeah, but it's definitely interesting to see. And I think that Kandi has tried to do that, like as far as having them work for her business. She doesn't just give them money. She has them, you know, work in Kandi and the gang. Like, cause I'm all for nepotism. I'm team nepotism. Like I'm team, if I can help a family or friend out and work and they're willing to work, like you get over a stranger any day of the week. So I'm fine with her filling her store with family members.
That's what I mean. Like, that's what I meant. Like, if I like have a place, like I have like a little vending business, right? My cousins are like teenagers now. Like they go do the machines, right? Because I'm like, you guys can each have a machine. You know what I mean? Like, it's yours, but you have to take care of it. And so that's been like one of the things, like, just so you can know, and passive income is the thing. Why not have that?
Yeah, that I love, and that I'm all for. And as far as like taking in kids, I am surprised at how well Quad is doing. I think it helps. Well, how old is her nephew now? He's gotten,
I think he's about 8 now, maybe 6 or no. He's in that before 10.
He's still cute.
Yeah, he's still very, very young.
He hasn't reached the teen years. Yeah, he still has the cheeks and the cuteness. But she's doing really well with him, which I think is great. Something that I mentioned also earlier, Lauren, is that it's interesting for those of us who have like made it to like our 30s or older without having kids. It's usually because we don't want kids. So it's interesting then seeing someone now having to have a responsibility that they never really signed up for. Like, you know, like I know I very much create and craft my life around not having children. And when I think about my future, it's not with kids. Of course, if anything happened and I needed to take them on, I would, but that's not anything that I envision in my future.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And it vastly changes like how your day-to-day is. And Quad is someone who likes to travel. I think it helps having money a lot. I think viewing them taking on kids with money versus without money
is the way to do it. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it makes a huge difference.
And her mother lives with her.
Quad's mother?
Yes.
Yeah, that makes a huge difference.
That makes a huge difference that her mother lives
with her. It does take a village. Yeah. I mean, part of me is like kind of sad, like my mom's passed away, right? Because if I were going to have kids or something like that, like I would want to like move her in with me.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that they show that, because it does happen so often in other like other cultures. I mean, Southeast Asian, huge,
Mm-hmm.
really prevalent. So seeing that with Sonia, seeing that with Drew, seeing that with Quad. Who else?
As far as moving in the parents, the other person we were going to talk about was Jen Shah. Jen, even though she does a lot of bad, she also has acknowledged that she's really helped with her family and moving them in and taking care of them. Lauren's not having any of it.
If my tablet wasn't dying, y'all could see my face.
I was wondering why it went away.
Yeah, I have to put it on the charger. I'm dead, but you know.
Are we feeling the same way?
Yes, we are.
Because didn't you have your mom take out her retirement, her
$1 million?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I didn't say she was a saint. I just said she took in her nephews.
I don't even know if the mom's gonna get it back. Think about that.
How do you do that knowing
when
that you're guilty?
You knew you were guilty.
It's one thing if you were innocent. If I was innocent, I'd be like, thank you so much, Mom, for believing in me. But there's no way I could know I was guilty and do that to my mother. There's just no way. There's no way.
Have your family getting crap for getting GoFundMe started on your behalf.
No,
but
you know what? It takes a level of balls to do that much shade, to do that much fraud anyways. So I'm not surprised by it on one level, right? Like, you have to be that type of like all for yourself, not giving a damn about other people to even do what she did. We don't get it because we wouldn't do fraud at that level.
True.
But obviously she would. That's why she did.
Right.
So it is a mess. Well, I don't know. I like the whole village aspect. I think if I were going to have kids or if I were going to take over kids, I would definitely be like, Mom, you need to move in too, because I can't. I went home for a week. 1 week. I told my sister, enjoy vacation. I'll watch the kids. Like, it was my nephew. There was only one at the time. It's like, you enjoy vacation. I'll babysit. It'll be all good. My mom took care of that child for the week. I popped in and said hi. I ended up house sitting and dog sitting while my nephew saw my mom. And like, I popped in to play with him and like popped back out. And it was good. That was good.
That's good. That's good.
I love kids. I just love them in like very small doses, and I love giving them back. And part of it is my anxiety. Like, I get real, like, I worry about every little thing. Like, the minute they're around me, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, are they like too, like, it's too, I respect my mental health too much to have kids. There's that show, did you ever watch it on HBO? It's like Camp or something with Jennifer Gardner. Anyways, it's about these adults who went camping. They're all wild. But she was like the most neurotic mother I've ever seen in my life. And I'm like, honestly, that would be me. That would be me if I was, because the way my anxiety is set up, I would drive a child insane. So,
well, here's the thing. Again, having her at 35, I enjoyed life.
Mm-hmm.
And her now is she's very that girl. Like, and unfortunately, my daughter is about 4.5 feet tall. She's 8 years old. She's 4.5 feet tall.
Oh, wow.
And she's stunning. And I'm not saying that because she's mine, but more so because she has the features.
The features.
Mm-hmm.
So when I say, who's that talking to you? Who's that? Who's just very over? It's like, Mommy, how am I supposed to make friends?
It's a dangerous world out there, especially when you're gorgeous. And especially even when you're gorgeous and not, men don't care. I remember being like hit on at like 13 in a store and telling the person I was 13 and him continuing to hit on me. Like,
yeah. The best and worst thing I've ever told her was that, baby, there are wolves in this world.
Mm-hmm.
And God gave you intuition. And when something don't feel right, run. That is the best. Mommy is not always going to be there. Mm-hmm. And that is what we're going to do for you. And
you have to keep out for it. And also, I feel like a lot of times, and this is off topic, but whatever, it's still part of the village. Like, there's a lot of times where we think of like girls like, oh, fast girls, or like, oh, these, first of all, they're just girls with hormones. But besides that point, they're almost not the ones you have to watch out for the most. It's like the quiet, the mature ones, the ones who are actually more susceptible to grooming, because then you have some like snivelly old 30-year-old who's like, you're so mature for your age. You're so responsible. You're so this. And they're the ones, because they're not walking around wilding out, they're getting the good grades, they're doing what they're supposed to do, that it actually makes them easier prey for those guys that swoop in. And of course, because they are mature, they think for their age, they think like, oh, of course, he's right. He sees it. And I hate that women get older and blame those young girls for thinking that way. Like, of course, that's how they think. That's what you're supposed to think when you're a teenager, that you have all the answers, that you know everything, that you're so mature. No one knows what they're talking about. And it's literally not until you get older that you're like, I was dumb as hell back then. So dumb. So it's like, instead of blaming the girls for being girls, we need to be talking about the men that are preying on them.
Right.
And
like,
especially the grooming.
Why would like 26-year-olds want to be like hanging out with 16-year-olds? I think about it. Okay. I grew up in Oklahoma City. There was this place called like Frontier City. Like, when you think about it, hindsight, you're thinking, yeah, I'm definitely making the right choices. But in reality, what did you have in common? And for people that are like, oh, the legal age, seriously, when you think about it, and I'm real talk, guys, right? Real talk, listeners, viewers, you at 18, let's just take it there. We won't even go crazy. And at 18, what kind of conversation are you having with someone that is 25 years old?
Or older?
Not, wait. Oh, we haven't even got there, right? We're just at 25. We're gonna go where they're like, oh, but we met, she was in college, right?
Yeah.
Now let's take it up a notch, right? And we'll even give you 18, 19. What kind of conversation, when you think about it, what at a 34-year-old?
Right.
What, when you think about it?
That's my thing, is I look and I call them kids now. At the age of 35, if you show me like a teenage boy or like a boy in their early 20s, they are literally boys to me. I'm just like, I didn't understand how grown men see girls at that age, and I'm like, yeah, because I look at them like, that's a child.
Some women, but yes, right? And how you're like, you don't see there the it's just weird, man. And I feel like when people say that, like 18, you just have to like look at them. Like me now, I don't even slowly side eyes. Now I'm like
like I got sad when I realized like I'm getting to the age where like even like some teen movies and teen like dramas where I'm just like, oh, like, but you're kids and it's all sexual and that's weird. Like I can't even enjoy them at the level that I used to, because now I'm like looking at it like an adult and I'm like, that's you know.
I tried watching this show on Netflix called Pretty Little Things, and it's a great show, but it was very weird to watch because you're watching children.
Yes. That's the dancers one, right?
That's the dance in these.
Yes. It was good, but yes, yeah, I agree.
I did not watch that, but
it's good.
I heard
it's really like good. It's like Center Stage meets
Gossip Girl,
Black Swan.
Yeah, Black Swan, Gossip Girl. Yeah, all in one.
Okay.
Or Pretty Little Liars.
It's good. I would recommend it. But yeah, it's like it feels slightly off. So then you're watching it and you're just like, how do these other people not feel off about it? But that's where I guess the village comes back in, is that we really have to protect each other. And it just always makes me sad when I see, and part of it, I get it, because I do think that it's hard for people to assign a victim logo to someone when they know they've been in that situation, because then they have to accept that they were a victim, right? Like if they were the teenager who was so mature, who got groomed by an older man,
right?
For them to look at someone else in that situation and say, oh, that girl is being preyed on, that girl is a victim, then they have to turn around and say, I was preyed on, I was a victim. And they don't want to say that. So instead they say that girl's fast and that girl knows what she's doing, which is unfortunate. Yeah, therapy. In conclusion, therapy for all. We all need
therapy, right?
Yes. Well, overall, I'm glad though to see these women reach out and help their fellow cast, help their family members, so that the kids can stay together. I would like to see it though more in other cast members. I think that would be interesting. And I don't know again if it's the dynamic of the women that are hired on the show. Like maybe it just happens to be that it's white women from more prevalent families where they don't have as much issues where something like that happens.
Ain't no way.
But I mean, yeah, because Ramona flat out
Ain't no
says
way.
that her past was, and her family members were a mess. So I don't know why we don't see it on their end, but we see it on our end, and it gives us something to talk about. So we appreciate that.
And
Yeah,
I wonder if we're going to bring it to Family Karma this season. I'm waiting for Family Karma to come back. I absolutely love
Me
that.
too. Me
And
too.
I like to see the different families interacting with each other. So I'm hoping to see. Oh, wait a minute.
Right? I was like, AutoZone.
Okay. AutoZone's going crazy.
It's I'm like, wait a minute. Good thing I'm fully dressed today.
Right.
Y'all really about to get a show. But no, it's I love those other cultured shows that show parents moving in, grandparents moving in, all in the same house. So I don't want to assume that wealthy white women don't move their families in. You know what? Well, no, she was Latina. Marisol and her mom lived together. But
yeah, that's true.
Charleston, Patricia and her son. If that
well,
counts,
and that's the other thing too. Like that, I think speaks to wealth and real money, and that because I don't know if you're on here for that part, but we were talking about how a lot of times like we act like they get to a certain age and it's just like kick them out because they're 18 and they're gone. But a lot of times you'll find in cultures and even in white cultures with wealthy cultures, they're not kicking their kids out at 18. Like they're living in mommy and daddy's mansions for as long as they can. And you see that with like you said, Whitney and Patricia. I wouldn't
Whitney
leave
and
either.
Patricia.
If I had my own wing, staying for life.
Time. There was someone else. They were like a character on the show. Tinsley and her mom, honestly, like back and forth kind of.
There's been some good moms.
Yeah.
And we do see a little bit. We did see, actually, we saw Jen from New Jersey bring in her family, but again, Middle Eastern family. Like, it's just interesting the culture of it. Like, even when you break down on the shows and the white women, you still get back to them being from those cultures where it's more normal.
Well, if we think about it this way, right? In terms of really the epidemic that is like opioid addiction that has happened and ripped our country, right, since 2005, right? 1 in 4 families are affected with addiction, right? And we know the path that often leads, right? Which is death, which is removal of children, which is a very hard life until they're able to get in recovery. And it is a lifelong recovery and you root for them, right? You're telling me that the 1 in 4 of all of the Bravo universe doesn't have any of those situations, doesn't have someone staying with them, isn't lending a home to someone. I find that very hard to believe, but I do appreciate Bravo showing it in different cultures. And I wish that they would show it with a lot more of the white families, because I think people need to recognize and make things less taboo and make it, realistic.
And that's why we appreciated Whitney. Whitney was one of the first from Salt Lake City to really come on and be like, my dad has a drug problem and we are trying to work through it. And it's like, okay, like it's sad to see it, but it's refreshing to see that it's not just the other cultures that are dealing with this.
So, what did you think of that Salt Lake City trailer?
Things. It's I'm trying to hold out and see what happens, because I feel like in Bravo world, we've gotten really big on like making these entire plots in our minds off of like a 30-second promo, and it's like, well, this probably happened to that, and I'm just like, you know what, I'll just wait, especially now that the editors are loving their jobs editing, and half the time what you see isn't even what happens on the show. And so we've spent months waiting for this scene that we think it's going to be this thing, and it's this whole other thing. So now I just take it in. I'm like, it looks good. I can't wait to see what actually happens. Especially like now that they're bringing Angie, who is a traitor, to Lisa. I'm team Lisa, by the way. And also those rumors about Lisa and how she gets her vodka. Like, I'm interested to see how all that goes down.
I am interested to see the scene where she says, I'm going to put money on your books. I want to know who she is. I want to know what her story is. Yeah. I stopped watching last season, to be honest. I was just over it. That was like the longest season I had ever
season.
I never watched the reunion.
I never watched the end.
The season was too much for me. I didn't watch the reunion. I was
over it. Right.
Yeah.
So I feel like this could be a fair shake. I feel like, I mean, partly though,
I'm gonna give it a chance. I just hope it doesn't like fall by way of Beverly Hills, because like I had to stop Beverly Hills this year. Like,
so you aren't watching it right now?
No, I'm gonna catch up so I can do a recap episode. But I think I'm gonna skip some of the middle stuff and get right to Aspen, because I hear like that it's just been so like toxic with the fighting and
very toxic.
I've heard, so
I can't separate. Now I just want you to know, when you said there's a character, right? Like Heavenly's a character. It's different when, and sometimes I feel like Heavenly can be at fault with this, when you take that character off of the show, right? Yeah. And you put it on another platform.
Like her
Rinna's
podcast.
Instagram and Twitter, online social media behavior.
Reckless.
Sloppy. Messy.
Yep.
I
wish someone said, and
I can't separate it.
Someone said that they wish they would just bring back the blogs, and I agree. Like, just give them a paragraph up to explain their viewpoints, and that's it. Like, that's what you get.
You have that.
That would be amazing. When did they stop the blogs?
When they all got on social media and all began Instagramming. And
honestly, I think it was when Kandi's Speak on It became really successful, because she did the Speak on It way before it got hot. Like, that Speak.
Yeah.
So I think once she did the Speak on It, I understand how content creating is very time consuming and it is work, but it is easier to do the content creating on Instagram than it is to do a YouTube channel. Very well, like Kandi does. So it is much easier for the housewives to go on Twitter and just
sprout off. Yeah. And like you said, when they take it to a different platform, like Heavenly taking it to her platforms, which then led to one of the best interventions I've ever seen in my life. And it led to that intervention because it's like she forgets that they have real world implications to the things that she says. And I think in her mind, she's still just making jokes for the show. It's like, no, this is real life.
But I think Heavenly would actually do better if she did, because I think what she's trying to do is a Speak on It. But Kandi does it's live, but it's set and there are questions and it's prepared and it's a structure.
And Kandi's rational.
And Kandi's not just
popping off. Yeah.
So I think that the difference is that Heavenly is reacting to the show in real time, but with no filter and no set, kind of questions, or this is what I'm discussing, because we all know you saw the episode 2 days ago. You're not watching it live with us.
Right.
You saw the episode 2 days ago. So you had time to sit and do your outline. So you wanted to give us messy. You wanted to give us, the immediate response as we're watching it. So I think that Heavenly and Rinna, thank God
your auto zoom is going crazy.
Right? I wish mine would do that.
So, I that Heavenly and Rinna, that same level of toxicity, and even in a sense, I
Rinna's dangerous.
I can be on my island, so that's okay.
Right.
And Candace, I'll throw her in there too. Now I love my Candace. I love my princess.
She can be reckless too.
She can be reckless too.
She can be very reckless.
So
who's very good? The women of Atlanta. You look at the Twitter after the episode. It is shade,
but it's
beautiful, fun. Flowing, fantastic. Why aren't the other franchises
like that Drew and Sheree back and forth?
Yes,
I'm team Sheree, but even I was like, yes, Drew.
I was dying. That's what I'm talking. That's the social media. That's what we want to see. This, I'm filing a lawsuit, Rinna, and
do you know how many people asked me, did she serve me?
I'm surprised she didn't, because she apparently loved. Don't be on the show if you're going to be that sensitive. First of all,
Well,
she went psycho on one of my comments. I remember that. It's
Rena
just like,
or
man,
Diana?
Rena. I had Rena.
Yeah. Well, it's all interesting to see play out, and we'll definitely talk about them more when we do the reunion or the recap episode for Beverly Hills. That will probably be in a few weeks, so they have to be wrapping up soon. I know Dubai wraps up this week, so I'll be sending out stuff
with the reunion. Yeah, Andy tweeted, asked for Beverly Hills questions, so it's coming.
So it's coming. Yep.
A few questions, and
fingers crossed. Well, thank you both so much for joining me to talk about It Takes a Village. It's always an interesting topic to talk about, family and Bravo. But where can everybody find you? Well, we talked a little bit about where they can find you, but let them know again where they can find you if they want to follow you.
Okay. You first.
You can follow me on Instagram at philly.diva. My TikTok is coming up, like there. It's a little bit here and there. But same thing, philly.diva on TikTok and Instagram.
Awesome. Okay, so my names are like super spread out. So on Instagram, it's at LJ4321. And that on TikTok, it's Lauren_Isa_magic. And on Twitter, it's at LO007. I think you'll find me. But just look for Shade, the shade of Rena, because I go in. I think she's blocked me at this stage. So
I think I follow you on Twitter. On Twitter, I'm Kristen Dion. I forgot about that. Yeah, so on Twitter, I'm Kristen Dion. So
happiness. Yeah, that's me. Yay. Okay.
With the shade, yes, I love it. Well, thank you both again so much, and thank you all for joining and watching. Catch past episodes if you haven't, and ones in the future. Like and subscribe. I always forget to say that. Like and subscribe and do all the things that you're supposed to do. And thank you, and come back. Bye.
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 Baby, you just kick your feet up while I kick back. I roll one with you by my side.